Welcome back. Marketing, sales, and service seniors. We are in the last stretch of this race of this 6-chapter series for the Precision Exam Marketing 1 certification exam. We have covered chapters 7, 9, 10, and 15. We're about to cover 16 and 17, but specifically this video, slide deck lecture, is chapter 16, and it is simply advertising. We're going to cover in 16.1 what is advertising, 16.2 plan advertising, and 16.3 create and evaluate advertising. So let's get this slide deck going and get these checkpoint questions in. So in 16.1 the question is, what is advertising? So 16.1.1, you're going to distinguish between product advertising and brand advertising. 16.1.2, describe the major roles at an advertising agency. So, definitions that we have for the approaches to advertising. Number 1, product advertising. Definition is this: relays the benefits of a specific product or service and uses rational arguments to explain why a customer should buy it. Brand advertising is different because it builds an image for a brand or a company, and then you've got under that umbrella brand advertising, corporate advertising, which is brand advertising for a company. So the checkpoint question is this: explain the difference between product advertising and brand advertising. Section 16.1 can be found in the textbook on page 445 and 446 and parts of 447. I will pause now so that you may do so. And moving on, let's talk about the advertising agency. So lots of terms and definitions here. So first we have advertising agency, and that's a company that specializes in creating advertising. Then you've got account executive, and that's the key liaison between the client and the agency. You have account planner. That person talks to the target markets, conducts research, and even travels to see how the target market lives, works, and thinks. Part of target markets and research would be focus groups. And then you've got the term media plan, which is a detailed listing of where and when ads will run. Some more terms. So here we go. Media planner develops the media plan. The art director is responsible for how the ad will look. The copywriter writes the words in the ad. The creative director helps guide the creative process and ensures the creative team's work conveys the right message and is in line with the client's needs. And then the producer facilitates everything that happens after the client agrees to develop an ad or a campaign. And that's the key concept. Once the client is happy with the idea, then it is ready to produce the advertisement. So checkpoint question for section 16.1.2, which can be found on page 447 and 448, is this: name the major roles at an advertising agency. I will pause so that you may do so. And moving on, section 16.2, plan advertising. So in 16.2.1, we're going to describe the process of setting objectives, determining the budget, and developing the creative strategy. And in 16.2.2, we're going to describe the different types of media and the factors that must be considered when selecting which media to use. Alright, so starting on page 449, we're talking about the planning process, and the first term is advertising plan, which is documents that outline the activities to be completed and resources needed to create advertising. And term number 2 is the advertising campaign. And this is a series of related advertisements with a similar look, feel, and theme that centers on a specific product, service, or brand. So an advertising campaign will include setting objectives, determining the budget, developing the creative strategy, selecting and scheduling the media that will be used. Number 5, developing the creative concept. 6, produce the advertising. And then lastly, you need to evaluate the plan's effectiveness. Setting objectives during the planning process is definitely a large part of the process, and then when we're talking about determining the budget, the questions the company will ask itself is what you can afford, percentage of sales, the competition matching, and objective and task. So those are 4 approaches on how to determine the budget you're going to do. So details about that are in 16.2.1 and that's pages 449 and 450 and parts of 451, and it'll talk about the approaches, what you can afford, percentage of sales, competition matching, and objective and task is in terms of how you're going to determine your advertising budget. So here's an example. Objectives for Seaside Resorts advertising plan. Their sales objective is increase reserved summer rentals by 10% by February 15th. The message is make reservations by February 15th and save $100 off the weekly rental rate. And their target market is families living in California who spend 1 week or more at the beach every year. More of the planning process, you need to develop the creative strategies. So a couple terms here. Creative strategy is this: how a company positions its brand or product in its advertising. And the strategic brief is a document that defines the target market and conveys the main message of the advertising. It's also called a creative brief. So checkpoint question for section 16.2.1. What are the 4 common methods of determining an advertising budget, and which one is usually the most effective? So that part of it is going to be in the textbook itself, and again you will find those text information in 449, 450, and 451. I will pause now so that you may do so. And moving on. Selecting media. There are all sorts of media that you can use for advertisement, and these are advantages and disadvantages of different types of major advertising media. So you've got television, radio, outdoor, direct mail, magazines, newspapers, digital in general, digital like on social media. You've got digital as like on a website, pay-per-click. That can include like Twitter and Instagram and that sort of thing, and then you've got digital banner ads as well. So when advertising agencies or companies are selecting their media, obviously cost is one of the main concerns, and also reach. So the definition of that is the total number of people who see an ad. So when they're making decisions on whether to do like a newspaper versus a social media ad, what's the reach going to be? How many people still actually pick up a paper and read it? So they have to think about circulation. And the pass-along rate is the number of people who read a single copy of a printed magazine or newspaper. Definition of frequency: the number of times a member of the target audience is exposed to the advertising message. And in the textbook in 16.2.2, it'll talk about the danger of wear out as far as frequency. And so on pages 451, 452, 453, and 454, and even going into 455, it's going to talk about those things. Lead time is the amount of time required to place an ad, and the all-encompassing message for these advertisements is it's got to be creative, it's got to be for the brand, and it's got to be a corporate fit. So checkpoint for 16.2.2, the question is this: what are the 5 primary considerations in selecting the types of media in which to run an advertisement? And I will pause now so that you may go back into that section to do so. Okay, moving on to the next section. So 16.3 is going to cover the creating and evaluating advertisements. So in section 16.3.1, we're going to identify common creative advertising formats. 16.3.2, we're going to explain what happens during the production phase of the advertising process. 16.3.3, we're going to differentiate between quantitative and qualitative research. And in 16.3.4, we're going to name the 4 types of advertising regulations. So for creative development, the major creative formats are these: musical, dramatization, testimonials, which can be influencers being famous people, comedy, image advertising, product demonstration, and competitive advertising. And it's all related to the creative concept. Now this section starts on page 456, and the details of these terms will run through 457 and 458. So the checkpoint question is this: name the 7 formats for creative concepts. I will pause so that you may do that research and get that answer now. Okay, so the production part of the advertising, so creative development and the production process goes through a number of steps, starting with a strategic brief, which we talked about earlier in this presentation. Then it goes into creative development and client presentation, and there can be revisions in between those two things. The client may not like something about what was brought to them, and then they'll go back and revise. And then you do a little more creative research, which could be focus groups, that sort of thing, and then you go into production when your client is happy. You'll produce a mock-up. If there still needs to be revisions, that could happen again. And then once the client has the final green light for the advertisement, then it will run into production. So the checkpoint question for 16.3.2, which is on page 458, is this: at what point in the process of creating an ad does the agency start the production phase? I will pause now so that you may get that answer. Okay, now gauging advertising effectiveness. So the evaluation techniques are these. There's two: quantitative research and qualitative. So quantitative is collecting data that can be interpreted into meaningful numerical values, and qualitative research is research that looks deeper into why and how of people's opinions. So the checkpoint question for this, which is in section 16.3.3 on page 459, the question is this: describe the difference between quantitative and qualitative research. I will pause here so that you may do that on page 459. Moving on to the next section, we have advertising regulations in 16.3.4, which starts on 459 and spills into 460 and 461. So that's going to go over these four main advertising regulations. So government regulations, regulatory boards, media outlet regulations, and competitive regulations. So the corrective actions that can happen within those regulatory systems, there are what you call a cease and desist order, which is a legal order to discontinue deceptive advertising. There are corrective ads that companies may be forced to do, which are ads that correct any false impressions left by the deceptive ads. And then there are fines, of course, which is a monetary penalty imposed on a company that fails to follow advertising regulations. Checkpoint question for 16.3.4. What are the four forces working to regulate advertising? And again, that information can be found on 459, 460, and 461. I will pause now so that you may do so. And that is chapter 16. We are almost done. The next video that we will be putting up on Google Classroom for the preparation of precision exams is chapter 17. Thank you for listening. Thank you for getting your answers to those checkpoint questions. Good luck on the exam when we do it, and I'll see you in the next video.